welcome back to Endurance Icons, where we sit down with individuals excelling and inspiring in the wide world of endurance sports. We are your hosts, Jessica and Mark Cullen, and we are super excited to have an amazing guest on the podcast today. We have pro triathlete Emma Pallant Brown. She is a two-time duathlon world champion. She has won 17 Ironman 70.3s over the course of her career. She's coming off a fantastic 2022 that saw her win the European 70.3 championship, a number of other races, and late in the year came away with a third at the Ironman 70.3 World Championships in St. George, Utah. She also finished number 15 in the PTO rankings, and Emma is also a coach at Peak Team, which is a South African-based triathlon club. So let's give a warm welcome to Emma. How are you doing today, Emma?
Yeah, good. Thank you. Thanks so much for the introduction. Yeah, good to be on with you guys.
Awesome. So, Emma, just kind of as we hop into it here, where are you currently based out of for your training? And maybe tell us what you had on the training schedule today.
Yeah, so I'm currently in Johannesburg. Yeah, we decided my husband's South African, and when we were starting to get serious, he decided to test a few weeks in London, and I came here in Johannesburg, and let's just say he didn't survive the London weather so well. And it's actually so good for training here. It's really like yeah, it's got good weather, it's altitude, and yeah, it's where we now live and have two dogs, which is cool. And today's training, I did a 28K run in the morning, and then a swim session, and then just a little road bike. I'm doing a road bike race on Sunday, so got a new bike, just testing it out and making sure everything's okay.
Nice. Yeah, I've noticed on your Instagram there you've done kind of a couple races recently, a run race it looked like last weekend and another bike race coming up. So are these just some tune-up races? Do you have any big ones coming up as well?
Yeah, I kind of really enjoy doing like the single events, because I feel like they just push you to like another kind of limit. And especially here in, like, you get a lot of the Lesotho girls dropping down, as well as the South African girls. So the fields are always strong in the running races, and I did more of them last year. Actually did a bike race, I think it was 2022. I had a bad crash, so that put me off in 2020. No, that's 2021. So 2022, I didn't do any bike races, but I'm getting back on there Sunday. And yeah, I just think it kind of breaks up that big block of base training, and kind of, yeah, you can learn a few things out there.
You have had so many incredible accomplishments, and it's such a wide range of different races that you're doing right now. What sports did you do growing up? What got you into where you are today?
So I was kind of one of those hyperactive kids that wanted to do everything. And I have an amazing mum. Somehow she juggled being a doctor with having 3 kids and taking us all to very different interests. Mine were all sports though, and pretty much like after school every day I'd be doing some kind of sports club. And I think I was just competitive, and I just loved like doing sports, especially at a young age. You could do it with the boys, which I thought was pretty cool. And most of my best friends were boys, so it's what we always kind of hung out doing. And yeah, I think it kind of grew from that, just my mum like supporting everything and being involved in everything. And I tried like everything, and running was the thing that I enjoyed the most.
So then you began this incredible career as a professional runner. When did that start, and sort of what distances did you begin in?
So I think pretty young, like as an under 15, you could represent England, and it was kind of, they take you over to a race in Belgium, and you get like the English kit, and it would be like at the end, wherever you came, you got like a little raffle ticket. So if you won, then your raffle ticket had number 1, and you got to pick the first prize. And it was those kind of fun events, like, and you felt so proud, like representing your country. And then it got a little bit more serious on the track, because then you could represent Great Britain at like World Junior Track and Field Games. And I'd say that was probably my best race. I got bronze at World Junior Champs 1500. And then I had a bit of a knee injury, kind of pushed too hard for a few years, managed to win European cross country champs, but I was still just injured all the time. And then that was kind of the thing that got me into triathlon in 2012.
What were some of the injuries that you dealt with? You mentioned that you had quite a few. How did you deal with them? And maybe dive into sort of what you walked through during that time.
Yeah, I think so a lot of it was being so kind of active when I was young and growing. Like, I used to be quite short, and then I had a big growth spurt. So I got Osgood-Schlattis, so like a little bit of inflammation in the knees, lower back pain. And they were all kind of little things that my mum was awesome. She, being a doctor, she had like the physios around her that she knew, and I'd always get the best advice. And I enjoyed doing the like proactive things that you could do to make it feel better. So if someone would set me, okay, half an hour of these exercises a day, like I'd do them religiously, because I think, okay, that's going to cure me. And that worked really well. And then I had this ongoing patella tendon pain, and it kind of just wore down. I kept running through it. And then, yeah, that kind of got into a bit of a tear, and I had to have an operation. So that was the biggest one. And even then, kind of, I'd say I probably took a week out being on crutches, and then I was in the gym kind of doing one-legged rowing and just moving my body in a different way, just to keep those kind of, I don't know, I guess it feels like an addiction, like, and just to do anything, get outside and hop along on my crutches, were the kind of things that kept me sane. But in that really bad injury, I was also studying physiotherapy. So my mum thinks it's a bit of a blessing in disguise, because I actually got my degree because I just knuckled down. I was like, okay, I'm going to throw all my focus into this dissertation, and kind of saved my grades.
Amazing. There's a lot of psychology that goes into the type of athlete that you are. So you were this incredible runner. What was it like, and that decision-making process to go from being a runner at the level that you were to triathlon? And was that difficult for you?
Yeah, so I think when I started Kelly Holmes was my mentor, and she had a charity that she was the one that was actually said, okay, like at the end of this rehab, have some kind of goal. So just throw yourself into a triathlon race. When you can run again, that's like the celebration, then go back to running. So it was never like a plan at the start to go to triathlon. And so, yeah, not having that conscious decision, it didn't feel like a big deal at the time. And then I did the triathlon, and it kind of felt like a new challenge. Like my running races, I always ran the same. I knew the girls. I always had the same tactics. I knew my strengths, weaknesses, and it felt like it was always the same kind of race in a different place. Whereas the triathlon, I was like, whoa, I'm so out of my depth. This is so brand new. And actually, I got my butt kicked. Like, who is this Daniela Reef who just won the race and like made us all look silly? And then I thought, okay, I'm going to keep going with it for a bit, because I don't want to overdo the running and get injured again. And I'd say literally that kind of first couple of weeks, I was really hooked. And then kind of the honeymoon period like was over a little bit. I was training, my coach took me to Australia, and I realized how bad I was at swimming. Did like a crash course in triathlon. Came back, went into some ITU races, and was that person where you run in and yours is the only bike in transition, and spent all day chasing and yeah, it was tough. It was tough. And I think one of the things that kept me believing in myself and kept me going was the duathlon races, like just being able to earn a little bit of money, give sponsors something back to like some kind of result. And I thought, okay, that buys me a bit of time whilst I get my swimming up and kind of move that way.
I love that. And I also am smiling because I just saw your dogs playing together in the background. They look like they're great friends.
Sorry. I
No,
hope
it's
you can't
very
hear
cute.
them. They're so noisy. I tried to like kill them out and took them for a walk before, but yeah, they're crazy.
They have as much energy as you do. When
Yeah.
I when I look at that, like that's such a big shift, and I'm focusing on it because you need to almost change, your view of who you are, because you find your identity in I am a runner or a track athlete to be I am a triathlete. Which sport, if any, did you struggle with the most? And then what did you put in place to become absolutely world class at brand new sports?
I think definitely the swim. I'd done a bit of swimming when I was younger, but never really took the time to like learn the technique. I just would like throw myself in, swim as fast as I could to the end. And yeah, then I realized, okay, it's not like you can't get away with being technically bad in the water. And I think that was the hardest step for me, because I had to kind of almost relearn how to swim. Like I had such bad habits, and you can't just get through it on fitness, and to actually be slowing everything down and be going to the pool and literally just drilling up and down, thinking I'm getting no fitness benefit here. I'm literally just teaching myself how to be efficient. I think that was really tough. And I'd say that, alongside the nutrition element of just being a runner, you could, like, for 1500 meters, didn't really matter what I ate. Suddenly going out on a 3-hour ride and thinking, who are these greedy triathletes that have all this food in their back pocket? Like, you eat before you go and then you're fine. And then I'd bonk and I'd learn the lesson. So I think, yeah, it was just also mentally, like, I think knowing that you couldn't train a runner's program, and you couldn't train a swimmer's program, you couldn't, like, had to fit all in place. I think it was very easy to overdo the training at the start, kind of coming in with the mentality I was now three athletes, like, instead of just one that does all three. So yeah, I think for a time I still viewed myself as the runner that was doing triathlon. So yeah, it took a while to try and change that around.
And what changed that for you? Because I can understand when you're looking at that, there is that fundamental shift, and it takes a while to, look at it as a completely different sport and look at yourself as someone who is, you don't just belong, you're this incredible, pillar of this sport. What changed there for you?
I'd say probably, so I went to long distance triathlon, so then the bike meant more, and then it was more of a time trial race and more on your own. But I'd probably say that the time that really changed was a couple of years ago when I started coaching with Tim Don. And he was like, actually, like, you bike okay. Like, we need to change your position and we need to do a lot of work in position. But like, your biking, your numbers aren't bad. And then I started thinking, okay, like, maybe I don't have to just watch the other girls and hang around. Like, maybe when I come out of the water, I should start chasing straight away and just like do my own numbers and do my own. And then I suddenly started feeling more like a rounded athlete, and not just thinking, okay, yeah, I'm going to have to run, like getting off the bike and hearing 6 minutes and trying to work out who it is too and what kind of time I'm going to have to run.
Is there some major cultural differences that you've noticed in, I mean, they're both sort of, the running is in across both sports, but I imagine there's significant cultural differences from the world of running that you came from to triathlon. What were some of those that you experienced?
Yeah, massive differences. I think in lifestyle, as well as things like nutrition. So when I was a runner, I would a few years not having the most healthy diet. I was very much kind of, yeah, would get away with eating a lot less, and not perhaps having the healthiest body, but getting away with it. When I went to triathlon, I soon realized, actually, my body shape is going to change, and you can't get away with not having like muscle. You can't get away with not fueling properly. And I think as well, that thing of, like, with running, you very much training maybe once in the morning, you're waking up, you're going for your run, you're doing your key session. If you're away on camp, you're maybe doing a little bit of cross training in the evening or an easy run. But you've got the day to, like, as a runner, I had to fill that space. Like, I worked as a physio. I had other things going on. Whereas as a triathlete, it's very much like you can be a full-time triathlete. You kind of have to be to get the work and the recovery in around that.
And I just think it's so fantastic that you've made the successful transition. And like I said earlier, you didn't just make the transition, you're now an icon in the sport, because you did need to completely fundamentally change the way that you look at yourself. You even mentioned like your body completely needed to change, your training needed to change. I just think that that's remarkable, and it shows how on top of your psychological game you are to be able to set these goals, and it doesn't matter the sport, you sort of start checking those boxes and making the changes. Do you have a favorite of all the sports? Now that there's 3, you came from running, is that still sort of your heart, or do you view them all as one sport, or do you have a favorite when you do your training?
Yeah, definitely the run. I still, like, Tim's pretty chilled about which kind of order I do my sessions in the day. And I'll still always opt for, where I can, I'll swim first. I want to get that out the way. I want to be fresh. And yeah, run is like my treat. I feel like the running is my time. It's what I'm comfortable with. We had a pretty bad lockdown here in South Africa. And yeah, we couldn't go to the pool. Like, we were literally couldn't leave our house for 6 weeks, except to buy food. And I kind of, I was like, okay, I'm going to cycle a little bit and I'll do some upper body stuff. But then I just took that time to, like, have fun with my running. And I went back to sessions that I had done as a runner to see if I could do them and complete them now with a triathlete body. And yeah, I think it's like, I don't think I ever lose that first love of running. It's definitely my favorite.
And were you able to complete those sessions now that you're a triathlete?
Yeah, I was so shocked. I had a couple of like misses where I had to go back and go again. But I couldn't believe it. I actually could run those paces. So it was a good feeling.
And you've mentioned Tim a number of times. I know you switched to coaching with him in 2021, I believe. What are some of the biggest changes that you made in your training program with him?
Yeah, I think first of all, Tim had me doing less. And that was kind of a hard thing to go through. I was like, oh, I'm going to go backwards. Like, he's and I kind of pushed back a little bit at the start, like trying to add stuff in, and can I do a bit more here and this? But then on the key sessions, then the times, like the cycles for the swims were harder. The like track times that he was setting was harder, and I was like, are you sure I can do these? Like, I'm not sure that like, this is, like, I had to remind him what I was doing before. And yeah, it was having that belief of, it was less training, but the hard was really hard, and he was trying to bring that easier down to be easier. And I had my doubts the first 4 months, and then I got into a race, and yeah, I did feel like a different athlete. So it definitely works.
That's awesome. Yeah, sometimes less is more. I definitely am going to save that clip and send it to a number of my athletes. They need to hear that.
Yeah.
They're just, it's always this arms race. How much time can we do? It's like intentional work is what really drives the results in the end.
Yeah, 100%. And you can't hit those like speeds and things if you're overdoing kind of that fluff that isn't really adding.
Totally. So jumping into 2022, this was obviously a whirlwind of a year for you, like some crazy highs and some lows along the way. I'd love to kind of take a spin through this year. So maybe let's start it off early in the year. Maybe we jump towards Clash Miami, where you had like a rough race there. So tell us a little bit about maybe like what caused that on the day and some of the big learnings that you took home that helped you later in the year.
Yeah, so I've always kind of known that I've had a bit of an issue with my sweat rate, with my, so I actually went to, back in, just before I left London, I went for a heart test because I'd fainted off the bike in Lanzarote, and I'd gone for all these tests, and there was an option to put a chip in my heart, because when I was losing, so I had a naturally low blood volume. So when I sweat too much and lose too much volume from that, then it wasn't pumping properly. So most people, if you're running into trouble, like your heart rate's going too high, if you're too hot or you're in the humidity, whereas mine was coming down, going like suddenly dropping, and then I'd pass out. So yeah, we decided not to, like, that would have involved like an operation. There were lots of like negative sides of having the chip in, because you're not curing the problem, you're just stopping yourself from passing out. So yeah, the kind of thought was, don't go to, it's not so much the heat, it's more the humidity, where I just like really sweat. So kind of stayed away from humid races, really worked on my nutrition with precision hydration, and I had a good plan. And I kind of thought that maybe Clash Miami being that little bit shorter, I might get away with it, and really wanted to put it to the test. We spent a couple of weeks beforehand in Florida, but yeah, it was unfortunately the same problem. So yeah, I would say I've learned my lesson, but then I went back to I can't say that I'm really bad at saying no to races, and I hope no race organizers are listening to this, but when I got invited back to Thailand, I was like, we have to go. My husband's never been. I was like, it's the best race, it's so much fun, it's only Olympic distance, I can do this. And everyone was like, oh, I don't think you should. And then yeah, same thing happened. So now I've learned my lesson.
So what are some of the biggest changes working with PH that you've kind of dialed in there? Like we use them with our club as well, and love all the like amazing educational info they have and stuff on the website. So was there some big changes around fluid, sodium, things like that you really had to get dialed in?
Yeah. So a lot was taking it not just on race day, but also taking it to the day before race day. So we started doing a rule where I won't drink anything other than water with the 1500 in, the 24 hours before. And I kind of feel like then I go really nicely pre-hydrated into race day. And then same thing, kind of trying to have maybe about a liter of that 1500, depending on what time the race is. And also on my bike, having not all of my carbs in with my hydration, but having some that is just pure hydration. So having that around my carbs, which is, yeah, really helps. And then afterwards as well, the same thing for recovery. If I don't drink enough electrolyte within that 24 hours after, I feel like so much more sore, and it just takes that much longer to recover. So again, just being really like anal on it and really measuring what I'm having.
And I think you had a couple hotter races later in the year that you ended up winning. Was there one race where you really felt like it kind of clicked for you from that nutrition strategy that you were like, like this is like sigh of relief?
Yeah, definitely. So in Luxembourg, the day before the race, I had a text from my mom, and she saw like it was over 30 degrees, and I was queuing like in this hotline to check your bike in. And she started worrying me, because she was like, are you sure you're gonna race? Like, I'm not sure this is like safe for you tomorrow. And to be fair, it was probably my fourth race after Miami. Yeah, she was not convinced. But I don't know, I felt quite confident. I had my bottle there with me. I'd done all my pre-hydration, worked out all kind of my simple foods and things. And yeah, it paid off. I did on the run actually walk through every aid station just to make sure that I was getting it in. And that's the other thing that I found, it doesn't slow my run down that much. Actually, if I'm walking through and I'm getting proper drinks each aid station, and it's not still a quick walk and taking 3 in, but actually some of my times have been faster doing that than when I just try and run, grab, throw over and keep going. Just because the end you don't fade.
Nice. You must have taught Chelsea Sodaro that for her Ironman World Championship win. That was her strategy there too. So there must be something to it for the winners there. So jumping into some highlights of 2022, we obviously talked about that Luxembourg win there. But you had mentioned on your Instagram, one of your number one highlights of the year was that European Championship win. Walk us through that race, because you talk about your swim being weakness, but I think in that race you swam front pack, and then you had like this crazy battle with Ashley Gentle, who had an incredible year in 2022 as well. Like, walk us through that race a bit and how that played out.
Yeah, it was a really exciting race. I knew that my swim was better in a wetsuit, and I'd swam with Ashley Gentle when she came over to Samarin, and we both had not the greatest race. And when we got off the bike together, I was like, we're gonna have, like, I know what she's like running, and we're gonna have really good battle. And then that day she wasn't feeling so good, and then going into the Europeans, like, I knew that she'd done some great training in Andorra and she was in good shape. And I kind of put pressure on myself. I was like, you're gonna have to swim with her, because that bike, like with Ellie and the other girls, they're all gonna want to bike away from everyone. So yeah, I probably went to my limit, my max on the swim. Managed to kind of hang on to that back group. I think the wetsuit definitely helped, and then I felt quite comfortable on the bike. I think my biking was going pretty well at that time. So I got off on a run not feeling too bad, but also knowing that Ashley went out really hard, so I knew she was obviously also feeling good. And we ran probably the first kilometer together, and then I thought, okay, I'm just gonna try. I'm not so good running with people. Like, I do most of my run training on my own. Like, I'm very, I like just being in my own space and having my own rhythm. So I thought I'd put a bit of a kick in, and I might regret it later. But it paid off. I then got into like my own groove, and it was good to come away with the win.
Nice. So on that solo kind of running section there, when we jumped to 70.3 Worlds in St. George, I was on course that day and got to see you close down this like crazy gap over the last like 10K there to run yourself onto the podium. How did that kind of day play out for you, in terms of, it was obviously a cold day for that swim and bike, and how did that play into kind of setting yourself up on that run, and then ultimately clawing back on Lucy and who else was it? Flora. Yeah, Lucy and Flora, who you caught in the last 10K. I'm like, I should remember the Olympic gold medalist name. Yeah, walk us through that day a little bit.
So Tim was actually talking about this the other day, and he said, watching on the thing, he saw when I came out of the swim and had one of the fastest transitions, he was like, oh no, she's blown it. Like, there's no way this is going to be a good race now, because she hasn't put on enough clothes. And I think, I had it was a wetsuit swim. I felt good in the swim. I had a really good swim, and I just lost that kind of front group of girls. So as I was running up the ramp, I could see them, and I kind of got a bit too excited, managed to fit on one glove and then just grabbed my bike. Spent probably the rest of like the next K trying to put on my shoes because my hands were a little bit numb. I think everyone was freezing. And then I had a horrible bike. Like, I was just so cold, and I thought, it's going to be miserable, and I just have to get off the bike and then do everything that I could. And I was hearing those time splits, and I can tell my husband's voice, like at the ITU World Long Distance Champs, when I came out the water, and I think it was something like 4 minutes or 5 minutes back. Like, I can tell his tone when he shouts the thing, like he's like, just finish the race. And then I can tell when he's excited, and I came off the bike and he's like, you're 4 minutes up the road, and I could see them all running together, and I thought, okay, this is going to be tough, because they're all in that battle. They're going to be really pushing each other on, and I just kept saying, don't go off on the first lap too hard. So I think I felt quite a good flow and rhythm on the first lap, and then I dug in deep on the second. And I think as well, just the relief of being off the bike and starting to get warm, then I just started really enjoying it. And I think, it was a fun day in the end.
Yeah. It was definitely an epic race to watch. And could you see them kind of when you were coming down on the last 10K, it started to get downhill, you could kind of see them? And did that kind of give you the motivation you need to like close the gap quicker? Like, did that kind of insert a little more excitement and help you fly?
Yeah, definitely. And I think everyone on the course just giving me splits, like that helps so much, because every time you get to another split and you hear it come down, like it just, I don't know, it pushes you that little bit more, and then you find a little bit more. And yeah, but definitely as soon as they're in eyesight, then it really helps. But and I like Lucy, I get on really well with Lucy. And as I ran past her, like every bit of me wanted to say like, come on, Lucy. But I had nothing, like I was already like coming near to empty. And I just try to put an extra kick in and do the whole silent, like hoping she doesn't see my pain. And then apologize. Yeah.
So Emma, do you have a favorite like race location that you've done in the past? Like one that really jumps out at you, of a spot that you always want to go back to?
Maybe not Thailand.
Yeah, it depends on the place or the race. I think probably like a special race, in terms of, this is where like I spent the first, like it was the first time that me and my husband went to a race together, when we were like dating, was Barcelona. And I'd already been there like another 2 times before, and it's just the course, I don't know if you've ever gone, but it's like slightly out of Barcelona in a little town, by the seaside. It has like a cool like town vibe. Everyone loves you being there. And the course is, the swim's like nice flat sea salt. And then the bike is really hilly. And the run is then along the promenade, and you get so much support. You do laps like along the promenade, through the town, along the promenade. And it's just, a race that they keep now not making it a pro race, but 100%, when I see it back on that calendar, I'll definitely go back.
Awesome. Yeah, Barcelona is such an awesome spot. So we've talked a little bit about some people that support you, obviously Tim being your coach, and we talked a little bit about Precision Hydration, but it looks like you've really put together like an amazing cast of companies and people that are really supporting you and helping you kind of push to the highest level and have these amazing results. I'd love to talk a little bit about some of them. So I saw yesterday you just announced a new wetsuit sponsor in ARC. Tell us a little bit about how that relationship came about, and maybe a little bit about their products.
Yeah, so I started hearing them. I have a couple of friends that do the swim run, and so that's where I first heard about them. And my manager met them in Kona, and he said like, do you want to try their products? And I was like, yeah, definitely. Like I've heard good things. I knew they were in Sweden, and we did a test on the wetsuit, and I don't know, it's one of those. Like I find it quite hard to get a wetsuit off. Like I don't mind taking forever to put it on. But I've had some really bad transitions where I've lost time just not getting it off fast. So for me, it's a lot about like the fit and the feel in the water, which the ARC suit, I don't know, I feel like it almost is more of like a body mold than just like one flat shape. It kind of, it feels like it fits. And then I was like, oh no, this is going to take forever to get off. But I actually get it off quicker. I don't know if it's the material and they were the two things. So getting it off, and obviously swimming in it. And both of them were faster for me. So 100%. I was like, where do I sign? Let's work together.
Nice. And you also, I saw the other day, are working with Form as well. How has been the first bit using those goggles? And have you like learned anything interesting in the first while?
You can see where my focus is, improving the swim. For Form, same thing. I tested a little bit and started to use them a little bit last year. Like my husband like loves them. And here in South Africa, we were because we have a lot of load shedding. So we'd often be at the pool and then the clock would just stop working. So we'd be all going like off his goggles, which was handy. And for me, like, I like to feel things and like know things in real time. So if I'm like playing around with something in my stroke and wanting to know, like, is it faster, is it slower? It's very hard to test that over a 25 meter because the time's so small. And then testing over something like 100 meters, the often you're like losing you haven't got the adaptation yet, so you fatigue before you see the time. So for me, in the cool down and the warm up, to be able to test different things and actually see in real time, okay, now I've gone from swimming like a 128, I'm swimming at 125 pace or whatever it is. Like, I found that's really just on the spot good feedback that it's helping.
Very cool. So we know that Specialized has moved out of the triathlon game, so we'll be eagerly awaiting a bike sponsor announcement in a little bit. We haven't seen that come out yet, but excited to see that.
It's worth the wait, definitely.
Nice. Perfect. Pumped to see that. Talking about the run, so that's your strength, but obviously you want to continue to have that as a strength for you. So I noticed you've been running in Hoka the last while. What made you choose Hoka with so many amazing options out there, and maybe what's your kind of go-to shoe for like training and racing with them?
Yeah, so I've been with Hoka now for sure, pretty much when I started triathlon. Actually, they were a super new brand, and when they first came out, like I saw them at an expo, and I was like, no ways, these are like really ugly. How can you run in them? They must be so heavy, like not for me. And then my coach she'd forgotten her run shoes, so she had to, these were the only run shoes on sale at expo, so she had to buy these so that she could go for be running around supporting the next day. And she bought them and she started like running around them. And she was like, Emma, you've got to try these. These are amazing. I was like, no way. Like, you look silly. Then they're going to be way too heavy. I'm going to be really tall. And then the guy in the expo showed me that you actually sit inside. So they're actually lower than the shoes that I was wearing. And then I tried them. I fell in love with them, and I actually I've been with them for years now, and they're super supportive. And I like as well, there's such a range of shoes. So for me, I run often my long runs in the Bondi X. I'll do kind of more track speed work in the Carbon X or the Rockets. And then these new Rocket X2s, they're like saving them freshies for race day. They feel awesome.
Nice. And any other companies or kind of people that you really think are helping driving your performance that you want to give a shout out to, and maybe tell our listeners a bit about how they've kind of helped push you forward?
Yeah, I'd say kind of products and things that I'm using all the time. My Hyper Ice boots, just because, recovery wise, I really feel the difference. Like, I'm very religiously put them on every evening. It makes me sit down for half an hour, do some work. And if I skip it, like I do feel it. And easy to travel to because you don't always know like a masseuse at the other side, or and coming from South Africa, we do a lot of like long, like pretty much everywhere is an overnight travel to get to somewhere. So yeah, they've been super cool and supportive.
Awesome. Jumping over to a bit of a different topic here. So outside of your own kind of performance, I know you've been coaching with Peak Team, so doing some coaching yourself. So how long have you been coaching for, and kind of what do you love about coaching?
Yeah, so again, it's probably been quite a few years now, probably maybe 5 years. And I think, so what I didn't like, I enjoyed being a physio, but it was very much people came to you because they wanted to get fixed, and it wasn't a first choice to come to you. It was almost like, oh, I'm injured, now I'm forced to come to you. Whereas I feel like the opposite with coaching, like people come to you because they want you to help them, and they want to be proactive about doing something. And I kind of that appealed to me from like what I was learning about my training and the background that I had from the physiotherapy degree, and like also as well just being a pro triathlete and doing your own sport all the time. You can get quite like in one world, and to then be able to like come out and also give a bit of that back and like communicate with other people. I think it makes you less like self-absorbed and just like, yeah, it just gives another dimension. And also writing programs in the evening makes me sit down. So if I've been training all day and haven't really used my head at all, then yeah, I like being able to be like, I got to sit down for a couple of hours and I got to do some work and talk to people. And yeah, I enjoy it.
That's amazing. You've mentioned Jared a couple times. I would love to know, like, how did you, and I saw him walk in recently. How did you meet Jared, and maybe talk a little bit about what your lifestyle's like to be married to a triathlete? Do you combine your training? Is there any synergies in nutrition? What is that like?
Yeah, so we're both terrible cooks. That's the first thing that, definitely helps, or doesn't help. We met so I went over for East London 17.3. It was quite recently after I'd fainted off my bike. So we'd been to this heart doctor, and he was like, that's too early to race. But I booked everything up, and normally my mum would come with me or my coach, like someone would, and I'd also broken my clavicle in the fall. So I wasn't swimming very well, and everyone was like, this is a bad idea, you shouldn't go. And I was like, nope, I'm going to go, like, see you all later. So I was in South Africa on my own and going to go for a run in what was apparently a very dodgy place. And this cute guy had came over to me at breakfast and was like, telling me where to ride and if I wanted any help. And he kind of helped me out that weekend, which was, he was lovely. And I had a big scab on my face, so from the fall again, and I was like, I look terrible. Like if this guy likes me like this, then he's a winner. And yeah, we kind of then kept in communication, and I went back to South Africa to do the Ironman, and yeah, then he started coming over to Europe, and we kind of swapped seeing each other. But it does help. Like he was starting out his pro career, and then decided kind of after a year or two that he wanted to go into like a more of a working type of thing and doing it for fun, which has also helped because I think two of us trying to make a living from it and it would be more stressful, and we've got very different personalities. So he can be super flexible. Like if we're out on a long ride, which we were in Boulder, and I punctured, and he's like, no, take my wheel, like go and like then pick me up because we punctured a couple of times, we couldn't fix it, whatever. And he's stranded on top of this like climb. There's no signal, there's nothing around. And I thought he meant go finish off your session, like, which was another couple of hours, and then grab the car and come and pick me up. He thought I was just gonna ride back as hard as I could, get the car and pick him up. So poor guy, like sat there for about 3 hours whilst I finished my session, then went and picked him up. And yeah, he's that kind of
married.
personality. We're still married. Yeah, 2 years strong.
Oh, that's amazing. And you just went on your honeymoon last year. You had an incredible 2022. I'd love to know how you plan to top it for 2023. What are your plans in racing and plans in general?
Yeah, so I'm hoping to do World Duathlon. I still need to get an entry for that, but I think that will be kind of the first kind of big race, just because it hasn't worked out any of the kind of previous years recently, but this year it's quite early, so I'd like to get a head out there. The PCO races, hopefully when they get announced, I can do a couple of them. And 70.3 worlds, like the big goal. And I think between the World Duathlon and the 70.3 worlds, trying to like fly over and do a couple of races in a go and then fly home, because I just train better at home. Like, I think that really worked for me last year. If I can spend more time at home and then just fly out to race, yeah, that's kind of my plan. I don't know if it'll work, but that's the plan before.
Well, we're excited. It's been incredible watching all of the your performances, and it feels like you're just getting started. You're so outspoken about your recovery. I see that a lot. And one of the things you recently put on your Instagram is you can only ask big things of your body if you respect and care for it, which I loved. But I'd love to know, what changes are you continuing to make to keep upping your game as you're headed into these races?
I think like I've really upped my gym work with my upper body especially. I think that's kind of, yeah, I always am going to need to swim faster. The more ITU girls come in, it keeps getting faster, and you think you're getting faster, and then the front pack keeps getting faster. Yeah, I'm really privileged to have some good guys to train with in the pool. So we're going to try and keep building that swim squad here, which I also think will help. And yeah, just I could always sleep more. Sleeping is a big one that we're always trying to find. I recently bought an eye mask, and that's actually really helped me. So yeah, maybe more eye masks.
I recently bought Mark an eye mask because he had never used one before, and now he uses it more than I do, like religiously, like every night before he sleeps. So they work.
I put one in Jared's Santa sack, and he also, now we like fight. If we can only find one, we're like, it's mine. No, it's mine.
Yeah, don't touch my black silk eye mask. I'm very
Oh my gosh. I want to talk about Ironman. Any plans to move up to that distance in the future?
Sure. So my last Kona, well, my only Kona, didn't go so well. And yeah, the humidity, kind of me in a short distance race in humidity, yeah, was kind of something that we shut the door on. And to be honest, I wasn't keen on doing a season, because it would affect, like, I race a lot, and I tried to do an Ironman with a lot of racing, which didn't work so well. And I wasn't up for kind of compromising that without having world champs. Now that the world champs could be moving around, it's definitely something that I'm kind of starting to open that door back up to, and yeah, definitely going to look at it, because that was the reason I wasn't that interested in doing it before. But I think, yeah, I think there might be some changes.
Yeah, when we saw that split, we were wondering what your thoughts were on it and if that might change your thinking. So exciting to hear. When you are going through intense volumes of training and you're looking through difficult workouts, do you have anything that you reach to that inspires you, whether that's mantras or music or people? What inspires you as you keep pushing to be the very best?
Like, I love my music. I always kind of, yeah, look for new tunes and kind of freshen up my playlists. Yeah, I think music really helps.
What
Especially
do you listen
really
to?
hard. Oh, a whole mix. I'm trying to think what I had on today. I do like for steady running, like a good in the flow run. I was listening to today Arizona. Don't know if you've heard of them. They're a pretty cool, yeah, band. But then, yeah, I like my kind of hard style remixes when it comes to like the hard sessions. sometimes Jared puts on like the flashing lights in the garage and we get a bit of a rave going. Yeah. So I'd say music. And then the other thing, my little like saying to myself is that you got to be able to race with the heart of a champion, you got to train with the fight of an underdog. So I always think, when it's hurting in training, when you got to dig like deeper than ever before, just think of that like underdog and you got to fight like that.
Amazing. I love that quote. I'm definitely going to use that one going forward too. Final question that we always ask. So you're here because you're our endurance icon. Who's your endurance icon?
I think I would have to say Kelly Holmes, just because she's someone that really like affected my career. She was double Olympic champion, and she took the time straight after that to take us on camp, to mentor us, to give us a feel of what the big championships were like. When we hadn't qualified for them, she took us out to some of the world champs and things. And I would say that kind of just took a massive leap in my career. And I think, that inspires me to be able to do the same in young athletes' kind of lives, because it changes you, especially at that age when there's two directions that you could go. There's all the social life, there's so many things that you could do. To have someone like believing in you and kind of helping you on that tough time. I'd like to also be able to do the same and give back and not just be good at sport, but to help others to really change lives over it, because I think it does. I think it changes people's lives so often.
And I think you're well on your way to doing that with the amount of people who look up to you and your athletes and just how much you inspire people. For people who are looking to find you, where's the best place to get in touch with you or to follow your training and racing?
I'd say I'm probably most active on Instagram. I'm M_Pallant. And I try to post as much as I can. I will try and be better this year.
Well, Emma, it has been an absolute pleasure to talk to you. Thank you so much for joining us. And we look forward to following all of your incredible accomplishments in 2023.
And you guys, thank you so much for having me.
Wow. How great was that? I always learn so much from these endurance icons. If you enjoyed the podcast as well, please consider liking us across social media, subscribing to us on YouTube, or giving us a 5-star rating on wherever you listen to your podcasts. We appreciate you and your support so much. We wish you happy training, and we'll see you back next week.